All right. Welcome to the Dynasty Podcast. We are back, motherfuckers. It's been too long. 3 seconds in and already dropping the MFers. We prepared over the last 6 months for this pod, right, Ben? I mean, super prepared, ready to dive right into some free agency
I'm like
talks.
George
And
Warhorse on the chat. I'm jacked up on Mountain Dew, son. Let's go.
it's been too long. Obviously, we talk a lot of fantasy and sidebars. There's a lot going on. Ben and I wanted to get together and just kind of restart the podcast vibes, get us back doing this on a regular basis. And then we thought it was important just for the state of the league, for us to have a conversation. I think a lot of times in chat, especially using the app, and things just get so segmented and broken up, and it just doesn't sound like normal conversation. So I thought the
More
two
default.
the two most consistent, level-headed minds in the 32-man league should get together and have a very honest conversation about some of the issues we see, some of the things that we'd like to see improve, some of the things we're doing well, and hopefully that'll start a positive dialogue moving forward, so we can make this and continue to make this the best league out there. So without further ado, how are you, buddy? Sorry for not being available the last 3 months to do this. I know you were
I
trying. I
don't,
just fucked
I
up. So
wasn't necessarily that available either. The only thing we probably could have missed is maybe 3 weeks ago we could have done a free agency podcast. But other than that,
I think we lost a little steam towards the end of last year too. It's just it's hard to keep it going. We both have lives, believe it or not. Even though I'm attached to this stuff, my wife starts getting a little bit crazy with me towards the end of the football season, and it's just then you're trying to do podcasts, and it's a lot. But we're gonna do better, even if it's not on a weekly basis. We're gonna try to stay consistent. Hopefully, this will be a good starting point. So let's talk a little bit of free agency. What did you think? What were some of your biggest takeaways from free agency this year?
well, before we go into that, I just want to, give my little opinion and talks on your intro about, just kind of how the league's been going and a lot of the banter and back and forth. And one thing I just noticed is that there's just a core group of guys who are always checking in on the chats, and discussions happen, and then they kind of evolve, and then shit happens, and then all of a sudden you have like the casuals, and I don't want to even call them casuals. They're just not psychos who are spending fucking March on a fantasy football site, which is insane. But we
Yeah.
do that. And then they're like, hey man, like I'm just trying to figure out what the fuck you guys are doing with this league. And that's a fair point to ask, because there's
Yeah.
so much talk about, oh, this, and then we made that rule, and then and it's just like, where do we line all this up, And so it kind of thought made me, we'll get to it later, but like a lot of the stuff I started thinking about was just like, I don't know, like I feel if this podcast was going to provide anything as far as substance for the league, even though it's like fun, I just like we should probably do a few podcasts that are like very introductory to
Yep.
like the general rules of maybe just contract leagues, so they apply to like the other ones we're in, and just
Sure.
because we're talking about barriers when you're trying to get new people, and the contract leagues are super intimidating because it's in comparison to the other ones, it's just like I got a guy and I have him forever. And this is just like, no, you gotta strategize a little bit. And I don't like when newbies come in and they just
It's
pick
like,
up
yeah,
make
it's
bad
like
mistakes by
it's
accident and stuff like that because we're not being good support systems, if that makes sense. So it'd be
it's
cool
like
if
a
we
guy
had some
that
archives.
it's like a person that you got a group of four buddies, right? And three of them go to a happy hour, and they're 2 hours earlier than the fourth buddy that arrives and hasn't had a drink
Oh,
yet. It's like it's the worst case scenario, because like no matter how hard you try,
here.
it's hard for you to get on the same level, right? And I feel like that's a lot of times what's happening in the chats. And the system's just not great, right? It's the conversations are discombobulated. There's no tone or texture to the conversations. People are sometimes they're trying to be funny or poke fun, and they don't mean it in a malicious way. Sometimes dickheads are being dickheads, but it's like at the end of the day, I think we're all on the same page as far as trying to make this a better league. We need to be conscious of, what that chat and what the message boards looks like, because from an outsider's point of view, it doesn't look rosy and fun to be in at right now. And I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think there's definitely things to fix. There's definitely things that we need to have more detail on. And there's definitely, it's a league that needs more support and people to allow that support. And that's all we'll do as far as now to preface our conversation later. But it's super important. And I think we're all committed, or at least I know our group of people, the Costa Rica Mafia is committed to playing our part in that. Anyway, moving on, let's talk a little bit about the football aspect of what we do. Tell me your thoughts on free agency, however you want to attack that.
Okay, so free agency, the biggest pieces obviously are unresolved, right? Aaron Rodgers hasn't been moved in theory like he's supposed to, and Lamar Jackson's in that real limbo.
Yep.
So those are one of the two most interesting pieces that are yet unresolved. But I thought there was a lot of action, a lot of
It was fun.
There was a lot
exciting.
of trades happening all over the place that, maybe I just don't remember there being that much trade action right around this time. It always just feels like it's signings, but there was a lot of guys getting dealt, and that usually happens around draft time, but it felt like there was pieces moving, right?
I think what we're starting to see is athletes trying to dictate and have more control over their futures, especially in football when they're shortened careers for the most part on non-quarterbacks, at least. Like people are, it seems like, trying to take the little, of the playbook from basketball free agency and having more control, holding out when they're not happy. They're kind of vocalizing their opinions more. And so I think that is causing more action and more big name action, especially to where people are signing shorter contracts, or they're not signing their fifth year, teams aren't signing the fifth year, or whatever it is. It's like, it's becoming more fluid.
It's crazy, but there's a very common trend going in the whole league that is very different from maybe even 5 years ago. And that trend is probably what my strategy I want to be this year in a lot of my leagues, which is just like 1 and 2 year deals are all the rave, right?
Yep.
And it's like 1 year deal if you need to kind of prove something to get a long-term deal, or 2 years if you're like a cusp guy that you don't want to be left out in free agency till June. And then the running back market was just super strange, right? Because you had like Jamal Williams got paid decent with the Saints, but then you're like, everyone else is getting like $3 million deals for 1 year, and
right.
You're like, man, like these guys aren't worth shit anymore. Like shit of shit. Like, mama don't like your babies to grow up to be a running back.
Yeah.
Oh man, like
no,
and we'll talk about that later, when we talk about some of the draft speculation and stuff. But I just like, when is that is that going to change?
I think it's a direct two points that you made, I think, are direct transitions into the actual fantasy football aspect. You're absolutely right that, I've started looking at, okay, am I going to sign someone to a EFT and lock them in an expensive contract when, shit, man, I'd rather sign them to a transition tag for 1 year and then let them go back in. And if I really want to pay that amount of money again, at least I have the flexibility to do so instead of locking him in 3 years, right? So I think, actually, I'll give credit to Dan Vito. When I first started, he said, hey, the only thing he told me was short contracts and cheap contracts. Those are the keys, right? And he's like, don't overextend yourself. And I think that's becoming more and more evident. And then the second point, I kind of already forgot. You mentioned, shit, I forgot what the second point was you made, but it doesn't matter. We're getting back into the flow.
It was just more about how running backs just aren't.
Oh yeah.
They're not being treated like humans.
Yeah, the decreased value in running backs.
If there was like a protest against humanity, it would be like with running backs, right? If Austin Eckler can't get paid, now granted, fuck the Chargers, they're jackasses and donkeys, and ownership's terrible, whatever. But Like, who else do you pay? Like, you pay
Yeah,
McCaffrey.
I mean McCaffrey got paid, right? I mean
You pay
Zeke got
McCaffrey. You
paid.
pay, like, for how much he runs that show.
They're looking at athletes, unless you're a multifaceted athlete that's playing on 3 downs and is interchangeable, you're not going to get paid anymore. If you're a 1 and 2 down pounder or a goal line back, you're not going to get fucking paid, period. Like you
I'm
have to
okay
be a
with that,
weapon.
but like Eckler is far from that. Eckler is like
No,
one of
Eckler is,
the
yeah, but he's
weapons
also
in the
28 years
NFL.
old or something like that, right? It's like,
Well,
you
I
know,
mean, fair, but he's
um,
the point. He's
no,
getting
I
them.
agree. I think what the point was that I think that's also becoming a little bit more common in BC, where running backs, where you have to have 3 stud running backs and you have to invest in them in the top 5 in the draft, and like it's, I don't know. I built a pretty decent team to this point with little investment into running backs, and I'm okay with just starting 2 that are going to get me 8 points and investing elsewhere, right? Like
I
you have
mean,
to zig when other people zag, right? I
kick
think.
return guys and stuff like that are just going to have to be good because the fact of the matter is, just like you said, if you want to go and blow the fucking bank, look at like he might work out now, but like you look at the Trey Sermons and all this stuff, like man, that is massive capital you are putting out
Yep.
instead of like a stud wide receiver going to be on your team for what 7, 8 years, like with extensions. I mean, and franchising maybe even longer. And then it's like not only do they some not work out, but like when they do work out, all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute,
For how many years? Is
yeah,
it a 5 years, or where you can have a
okay.
wide receiver for 12, right? Like, I mean, I mean, 8 to 10, I don't know. I mean,
I've been probably super fortunate that I drafted Aaron Jones and I've had him his entire career and he's like overperformed versus what everyone else thought he was going to do. And which is weird because I can never trade him, but he always performs for me. So it's kind of the reason why I've always been able to have a decent
yep,
shot at that spot. But everything else I've done outside of him has just been like, fucking filling holes in a boat. It's just like a disaster.
yep. So what were some of the other favorite signings? I'll say that as a Bears fan, I was super excited to see what they did in free agency. Loved what they did at middle linebacker. They basically got 2 for the price of Roquan, which I think was great. I think the DJ Moore move was super exciting because they got that as a part of a trade, and so instead of getting a third first rounder, basically they got a guaranteed asset that's 25 years old. They've aligned him with 4 other assets under the age of 25 or 26. So I think, as a Bears fan, it's pretty exciting. I mean, I'm also cautious to ever get excited about what the Bears do because I'm always let down. But at the end of the day, I'm glad they kept Fields. I'm glad that they're surrounding him with offensive talent. And I'm glad that they're investing in the defense because that's our true nature anyway. And we'll see what they do in the draft. I was happy with the trade down to 9. I really think that was just a brilliant move. And I think we still have a possibility of getting someone like Jalen Carter there, or a solid offensive lineman.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
things are looking up. I would say in general,
Got a good GM,
Detroit and
man.
Chicago
I
out
like
of the
his
NFC
moves.
North. I love what Detroit did. It was weird that they picked up David Montgomery, to be perfectly honest with you. But I mean, Detroit's going to be fucking good. I think the Bears are going to be good. I would
Detroit
be,
had some sneaky signings, man.
yeah.
Detroit's got some sneaky signings. They're going to be a problem. I think they're, if Jameson Williams is like really legit, it's going to be a issue, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm very, very much invested in Jameson Williams across 3 out of our 4 leagues, I think. So I'm
Super
hoping.
interesting because they have Goff in his last year for them, and
Mm,
then we have like Cousins for our last year.
mm-hmm.
So it's just super interesting if both of our franchises are just going to wait till next year to punt. But like it's for the, I don't know.
I
It
hear
feels
Detroit's looking at drafting a quarterback this year, but we'll see. I think honestly, what the fuck has Goff done wrong? I mean,
nothing.
he's
No, if they can
taken a
get him
team
on
to
the
a
cheap,
Super
I mean, they
Bowl.
should keep him. He's way young. I mean, Kirk Cousins is just older, right? And
Did
Cousins,
Goff have a better year than Matt Stafford last year?
yeah, but Stafford was crazy injured.
I
Like,
know. I'm just saying. I mean,
yes, but
let's.
Stafford won a Super Bowl, so we need to pump the brakes on that a little. But yeah,
Would you rather have Jared Goff or on his contract, or Kyler Murray?
Oh, golf. I mean, dude, what do you know with Kyler Murray's contract?
Think about that. Think about what you're saying. I mean, that's something that I don't think people would have said last year, right? Going into the season.
Maybe not as popular opinion, but there are people saying it, man. I mean, just
He was, I thought, a pretty solid quarterback play last year. And they have, I mean, Amon St. Brown, don't remind me of that, because him and Stevenson, for the cost of Gabe Davis, is not looking so good these days. Amon-Ra, like, is a true kind of number one possession receiver. You got Jamison Williams, like, fucking, you got Swift, you got Montgomery, you got, who did they get at tight end? Didn't they sign somebody at tight end too? Irv Smith? No.
no. They'll probably draft one.
They got rid of Hawkinson, I think, to draft somebody else. Anyway, I think Detroit looks good. Chicago looks good. Minnesota, we'll see what happens. Are they? Do you think they're going to move Cook still, or what?
Yeah,
you do, and then they'll just keep Madison and draft
two things. Okay, so not to go too much into the Vikings, but
this is what we do. We just get off on tangents, so it's fine.
No. But the most interesting thing about the Vikings is the re-signing of Alexander Madison, and the fact that they signed Marcus Davenport. So you have like this embarrassment of riches that you can just roll with if you want to. Like, they could do it and keep Cook and Madison, and then have Davenport.
Chandler.
Well, they would have Davenport play, in theory, like a D tackle DN, like on the inside, and then have Daniil and Smith coming on the outside. That's a psycho pass rush. But now, because they have like flexibility to trade Smith, Daniil. I don't think they will with Daniil, but like they might trade Smith and Cook in a package to somebody to like get a lot.
Right.
And that takes care of a lot of long-term cap. Neither of those players are going to be here next year. And, I don't know, like the Vikings are going to be super active on draft day trading, I think. No matter what trading, but they're the biggest candidate to trade their in-house players because they have like too much allocated at certain positions that they can roll with it. You always need DNs and pass rushers, and you always need fucking running backs, right? But I think we're probably going in a different direction, but it feels like we're going to run it back 1 year and like cut half the team. So we might keep everyone.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that division's a lot more competitive than people give it credit for. I think they were competitive all last year across, interdivision play, right? And brought, games to the wire with but there was a lot of teams that finished middle of the road. Like the Bears, they had 3 wins, but they played competitively last year. Detroit played competitively last year in the NFL, right? Like, so I think if Minnesota isn't making moves and they're just going to kind of ride the ship from last year, they could find themselves
from last year. They have Brian Flores. They're doing the opposite. So
right. But you just said. I thought you just said. I might have
offensively.
Yeah, okay.
Right. And they'll probably still take a wide receiver in this draft because they haven't signed a free agent yet. But
they like Osborne.
They can be the same they were last year offensively. When last year they were 31st in defense, and Flores can make them top 10 with the same guys.
Yeah.
That's how bad our defensive coordinator is and how good Flores is. And Flores has motivation to like get a head coaching job next year. So if he flips the 31st defense to like a top 10, he's getting snapped, like he's getting a fucking head coaching job right away. Right? Like there's no way we're keeping him long term. And then if maybe he doesn't and we keep him for a year or 2 more, I mean, that's only good for us.
How many teams out of the NFC North make it to the playoffs, and who do you think they are?
Fuck, man. Well, no more than 2, but it might be 1.
I think 2 make it, and I'm going to go on a crazy tangent. I'm going to put this in a parlay, and I'll call it the Bears and the Detroit Lions are the 2 teams out of the North next year. Who knows? I mean, why not?
It's hard to say, man.
We could get pretty decent odds on that.
We could trade Kirk Cousins, Dalvin Cook, and Zadarius Smith and 2 first-round picks to the Ravens for Lamar Jackson. and then
Oh
it'd be a problem.
shit. This is
And
gonna
then
be
it'd be
a
a
problem.
fucking problem. Then now nobody's talking, right? And but like I don't even know if you do that because you got to give them like the most money ever, right? Like you're gonna have to give them like 180 million guaranteed minimum.
Hey, we can't edit this, but our company went from Zoom to Teams, and so I tried to open it up and just did it on a non-paid for wall. It's gonna cut out. It's gonna stop in like 15 minutes, and so I don't
Oh
know what
yeah.
else we do. Uh,
Okay. Well,
do you have a Zoom?
I don't.
All right.
We cannot edit it. Let's just go. You want to try and get how much? 15 minutes?
Yeah, but I got Teams. I can use Teams. Like, I just don't know how to do all the uploading and all that stuff. Like, I'd have to figure it out. But we don't have time to do everything that we were going to do in 15 minutes. So let's just finish this 15
Why don't
minutes.
we just do? Why don't we just let's talk about free agency. Just let me do the defense free agency in 15 minutes, and then we'll just do a second pod for an hour or whatever, and go over all the other stuff.
Yeah, I just don't know if they'll allow me to do another recording through Zoom, or it'll have to be a different.
I don't think it matters as long as we can record it and upload it.
Yeah, we can finish in the 8 minutes and then whatever. Anyway.
We had 8 minutes.
Hey,
now?
there's no editing on this show. Sorry, boys. We're gonna have to work out some of the kinks, but it is what it is. We got a fire pod today. We're kind of geared up for the second portion of this. We want to talk a little football, but we know how important it is to be ambassadors of the league and talk about the health of the league too. So we're not going to cut it short. We're just trying to figure out some of the technical difficulties. So
that's fine. It's going to be a two-part pod.
Two-part pod.
Yeah, that way you can, you can watch the first pod, and when your wife starts complaining, give her a back massage, and give her a little something, something. When she passes out, you can do the second one.
There you go. All right, so go ahead. Go on to the next talking point. Then your two favorite signings on defense.
No, it wasn't two. You said 3 to 5.
3 to 5. 3 to 5 is fine.
We got 15 minutes. We got all day, baby. So number one that I think is just cruel and unusual punishment, if you're a fan of any team in the NFC West, is Javon Hargrave signing with the San Francisco 49ers is out of control. Like, it's good he made the Eagles defense last year. Like, they could afford to lose him because they drafted for it, but like, San Francisco doesn't need a better defensive line. And now they just got way better. So it's like, I was thinking about scenarios where San Fran doesn't make the playoffs with the defense that they're fielding. You know what I mean? I mean, they lost Ward, but they picked up, what's his name? Hayfield from Carolina. Like, so similar guys. So it's like, I don't know. I don't think they're missing a step. It's just going to be like that quarterback plays the wild card, but like, I think their defense is just going to top 3 and fucking ruin everyone again. It'll be really interesting with DeMeco Ryans gone, how that affects it. Like how well trained the guys behind him are coming in to like help them, or that instinctually how well they are. But I would say DeMeco Ryans is a big thing, but Javon Hargrave will probably help that a lot.
The Niners defense is going to be nasty.
Huh?
The Niners defense is going to be nasty.
Dude, like Hargraves next to Bosa, like fucking everyone's dead. It's like crazy. The next number 2 signing I liked for defense was Jesse Bates going to Atlanta. And I say that mostly because like I get Cincinnati got a safety last year, but like, dude, they lost both safeties. I don't know what the fuck they're gonna do. They're gonna go way young. They didn't do enough signings on defense to like get any better. And Atlanta on the other side, I mean, that's a hell of a signing for them. They got him pretty cheap too. Considering, I mean, he's a Pro Bowler. So I thought that was probably the number 2 signing, just because the price was really good. Okay. And then, so number 3, I have middle linebackers, and I didn't include yours. Okay, but I appreciate your point that because you got two guys for the price of Roquan, that's good. But I'm kind of anti-spending money on an inside linebacker these days. From what I've seen in the league, like guys just come up out of everywhere. And paying so much money to that position just doesn't seem like good business. But that being said, you overpaid Tremaine Edmunds. I don't like that contract. I think you overpaid for him, but you underpaid for Edwards. So it works out. I think Edwards is going to be the better linebacker there, the better stat linebacker. I think he's going to do more. I just seen so much of Edmunds in Buffalo to know that he's shit without Matt Milano. So with Edwards, like he can be as good as he was in Buffalo, but you're just like, I mean, he needs help. He's limited in things, and if you don't have another guy like picking up the, especially in the run game slack, like Edmunds is a liability. But I liked a couple moves that were kind of directly related, which like David Long. David Long went to Miami, cheap, 2 years, 11 million, and I think he's going to be a fucking stud there. And then D'Amico Ryans took. Oh no, excuse me, not D'Amico Ryans. He's getting replaced by Azeez Al-Shaair from San Francisco, who was always like, if he was a plug and play, right? He was like the third guy that if he played for Warner or he played for who's the other guy I'm forgetting? The other starting line stud. And it was like he would just automatically be good for 12 tackles, right? So but it's a weird thing because it's like he signed a 1 year, $6 million deal. So it's like, why won't you just keep your homegrown guy who knows your defense for 2 years, 11 million, just to sign another guy who's very similar for 6? And this is like the reason I'm bringing this up with two guys is this happened like everywhere in the league where you would let a guy go, pay somebody else who's the same talent to replace him, but he doesn't know your system. And it's just
Right.
like, it just seems very strange, right? Like unless
It's like Jamal Williams let go by the Lions and then sign Montgomery. What?
Yeah, on offense, that's a great example.
Yeah.
It's just like, wait, what? Okay, like what's the difference?
Same
Is there a
cost
difference?
essentially, but Williams has been there, been a locker room guy. People love him, and then it's like,
Yeah,
is
like
the
that's
talent level that much different?
stuff kind of matters, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, granted, these guys want shit, and it is what it is. But the next on my list on number 4 is like, these interchangeable D tackles, which was like, I thought Draymond Jones going to Seattle was insane good for Seattle. Like Draymond Jones is a problem at D tackle. Like he's like, he's like a hybrid D tackle DN, but like he blows the middle up. He fucking was the reason why Denver was constantly causing problems in the middle. And like their defense was carrying their offense, so he goes for 3 years, 51 million. And then they signed Zach Allen for 3 years, 45 million from Arizona. And I like Zach Allen a lot, but like, why aren't you paying Draymond Jones that money? Who's like proven to like destroy on your system and everything. It's just super strange. And maybe it's because Peyton's in there and he's, he doesn't want egos. He wants new egos that he like, I don't know, but that one was super strange to me.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing, Denver? You're like, pay the fucking monster that's like anchored your defense. Like,
is it because of a coaching change or something like, and they want
Peyton's in and he's got a new defensive.
Yeah.
I mean, in theory, they're going to run a super similar scheme on defense, but here's the thing: they kept everyone else.
Right.
Yeah, they re-signed Singleton and like they signed like all these other guys, but then it's like, well, I mean, maybe Zach Allen's a little younger. Maybe that's why.
Yeah,
maybe
I'm not sure.
Didn't want to give that age for the contract, but Draymond Jones is a top 10 DT. Period. Like. And Zach Allen's an up-and-comer, but we'll see. Stats will show, but like that's another one that was super strange. And then the other one, which was
you got a minute left, buddy.
We got it. It's Cameron Sutton goes to Detroit, right? That was a great signing for them. 3 years, $33 million. He's good. And that's the one for you that was like,